Hey, so today's question is actually, what was that? It was, how do you know when a song is actually finished? So the question is, how do you know when a song is actually finished? And I think the short answer is it isn't. Art's never completed; it's only abandoned. Um, but if we dive into that a little bit, so it depends on a lot of things. So like, let's say for example, let's say you're doing sync. You're writing songs for film or television, and maybe you get a brief and it's a sound alike brief. So what that means is you'll have like music supervisors or people that are responsible for getting songs placed into film and TV shows. They want something that sounds like something that's popular without actually using that song. So, and a brief is just an instruction that's kind of sent out, a request, if you will, that's sent out to different composers and people in the industry to be able to do that job. So let's say you have a sound alike brief and it's saying, okay, we want a song that sounds like Billie Eilish and it has to have a tambourine in it. And, maybe it's that simple. Okay. And so you write a song that sounds like that. Now, when is that finished? Is it finished when it sounds exactly like Billie Eilish or the tambourine is just right? Probably not. In a situation like that, it's finished when kind of when you do the job, when the person says like, okay, that's exactly what we wanted, And I think that I encounter that a lot with my mixing. If I really, really wanted to, I would obsess over mixing a song. I don't know if it would ever be done because mixing is also an art form. So I would sit there and I would, hold on, my dog's making a weird noise. Tui, what are you doing? Anyways, I'm just gonna leave that in. I'm not even gonna edit it out. So, okay, so like mixing, for example, um, yeah, I could obsess over that mix and I could really want to make it perfect, but it might never be perfect. And so I think again that comes down to where I get it to a point where I'm like, okay, this is about as far as I can really take it. I kind of recognize when I'm starting to get just a little obsessive and doing too much. Like you can overshoot and you can start tweaking whether it's songwriting or mixing. You start moving things too much and you're like, okay, it's almost perfect, but if I do just a little bit more, it'll be even more perfect. And then you overshoot it and now you've ruined it and kind of got to start over. So I've been doing this long enough I can recognize when I'm at that point and I will submit it to the client. And 9 times out of 10, the client's like, wow, this is better than I even imagined. So for me, maybe there's that voice in my head that's like, I could have done better. But the reality is I've exceeded the client's expectations. That's when that's finished. When it comes to writing my own songs, I I have hundreds of, I call them sketches. Maybe it's an 8 bar loop. Maybe it's a melody line. Maybe it's like a chorus that could be something. But the songs aren't doing anybody any good on your hard drive. If you're writing the perfect song, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have an EP and a full album right now that I've been sitting on for over a year, and it's. I just need to finish it. So maybe I'm being a little hypocritical because I'm doing exactly what I say don't do here, but the songs aren't doing anybody any good on your hard drive. You got to get them to a point, and it comes to a point where it's more important just to get them out into the world than it is to make them the absolutely perfect song. Because as an artist, you're never going to be completely satisfied. Um, it's never going to be finished for you. So get it to a point what the way I've started overcoming it, and even with the EP and the album that I'm talking about, I have schedules now of going, okay, I'm going to finish this album and I'm dedicating this amount of time to sit down and working on the album, and it's going to be done by this date. And when I set myself deadlines and schedules like that I dedicate that time to do that, I get it done. And I've done albums like that in the past. We did with Human Factor, my band now is Seven Factor, but with Human Factors Lab, we did an album called The Suicide Diaries, and we planned every part of that out. We didn't have the songs even written yet, but we had writing sessions. We knew when we were in the studio. I was still writing on the plane from Florida out to Los Angeles. I was in the studio With Verena while he's mixing and I'm writing, or I'm outside while everybody's doing stuff and I'm still writing the lyrics. I think a part of that album I freestyled on the spot because I hadn't finished writing it, but we had scheduled it to get done. And I think that pressure helped that album become better at the end. So um, that can be a difficult thing because creativity is supposed to be this inspired thing that just pops out of nowhere. It's not supposed to be, it's so hard for me at least to, okay, well, at 6 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to sit down and be creative. And that's probably not the case. But then maybe I suddenly have a creative streak and it's not the ideal time. Maybe I'm on a gig. Maybe I'm driving. Maybe it's, I've written songs in the car while I'm driving. I'm not in a studio. I'm not near anything to write that down. I hum things into my voice memos on my phone. So creativity can strike anywhere, but I think that also being regimented of, hey, no matter what, this is when this album is done. This is when the song is done. Because that was the question. When do we know a song is finished? I think by saying, okay, I'm going to work on this, and by this time, that song has to be finished, and I'm going to release it into the wild. And I think that counts if you're creating art to release, kind of like the example with if we're doing it as a composition for film, it's a job. There's a purpose behind it. If you're wanting to put out songs as an artist or as a band or whatever, there's a purpose behind that. If your goal is just to write songs and you don't care if anybody ever hears them, you don't care if they're ever lit out into the world, then the song's finished whenever you say it is. It could never be finished. It could be something like the Mona Lisa, where you're an artist and you care. Da Vinci carried that painting with him for over 20 years and would just work on it. It was never, this has to be done by this time. So, yeah, that's the answer to that question. I think it's complicated, but at the end of the day, I don't think a song is ever finished. Yeah, before I end it, if you have any questions, boss at Yes Quit Your Day Job, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll keep doing these little daily question and answers. And if you want to see the full podcast where it's me having these conversations with other industry professionals, Yes Quit Your Day Job is the name of the podcast. So it's pretty much wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Have a good day.